welcome to another episode of the Sales RX podcast. I'm Chet Lufgren here with my co-host Billy Stein, as always, here to provide you the best insights as it pertains to your work as a revenue professional, go-to-market leader, and individual contributor. Really excited for today's episode. But before we jump into today's episode and kind of what we're talking about, Billy, what's going on, man? How you doing? You just got a new TV, a sound bar. You got the works, man. How's that working out for you?
What's going on with that shirt?
Broke free from tradition, right? Well, we're breaking free from the script a little bit, so I thought I'd ditch the Hawaiian shirt and come with the Paul Bunyan.
Well, if you're trying to chop a tree in your front yard down, I'm busy. But like if you're smoking brisket in your backyard, like I'm totally available. I'm down to party.
I'm a pretty weak person, so we're probably going to go with the latter instead of the former. I have smoked a brisket before. It didn't go as planned. Someday I hope to be somebody that can dedicate the time that's required to actually learn how to correctly smoke meats, because it looks incredible when people do it the right way with like the pink butcher's wrap and all that stuff.
I think now is an appropriate time to tell you that you're a male over 30 and you have kids. Like,
it's time to get started.
I think it's time to put that shirt to good use.
I'm going to have to get to it sooner rather than later. Awesome. Well, we'll get started. But first, before we do, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Kixie.
If you've been in sales for a while, you've probably noticed that it's harder than ever to get prospects to answer the phone. It's easier than ever to screen calls, and more numbers are showing up as spam likely on people's cell phones.
And apart from the time spent stuck on the phone waiting for prospects to answer, salespeople have to spend a ton of time entering call notes in the CRM, leave voicemails, and create follow-up tasks in the hopes of having future sales conversations. That's why we use Kixie.
It's the modern voice and texting platform that turns your CRM into a true sales engagement platform, all while increasing your answer rates through cutting-edge technology.
With their holistic approach and seamless integrations, you can enable your reps to spend less time on busy work and more time on having conversations with prospects using Kixie's AI-powered features like multi-line power dialing with voicemail detection, advanced local presence, phone number reputation management, and conversation intelligence.
Not only that, Kixie's team of sales engineers will help you build out advanced workflows and automations at no extra cost.
So head over to Kixie.click/salesdoc. That's KIXIE.click/salesdoc, or click the link in the description. Get a fully loaded 10-day extended free trial for your entire team. You don't even need to put down a credit card, and the trial comes with hours of call credits included.
All right. So as we stated, today is actually a little bit different than our traditional format. Typically, we have our cap or no cap segment, Billy's Black Book, Doctor's Orders. We try to segment out the episode, digging into different areas of the specific topic, but we wanted to break free of that a little bit this week because both you and I have had a little bit of time to digest some new information that's setting everyone's hair on fire, putting alarm bells up left and right that are going off, and that's around outreaches, information, press release, blog, about the new email acceptance rules behind Gmail and Yahoo, which are, inherently going to affect a lot of us in the B2B world. Sure, Outlook, Microsoft Office, whatever we want to call it, will eventually follow suit. And there's been a lot of stuff thrown around on the internet about what's going to happen. What does this look like? What are some solves? Neither Billy or I claim to be email deliverability experts. I will say I have had to set up email deliverability for 3 different companies, twice with the support of IT, once on my own, leveraging the support of some outside consultants and specialists. So I understand a lot of the what and how, but I'm not going to bore you with like, what is DKIM? What is, DMARC? What are all these things and the technical aspects? There are other people on the internet who can help you if you really want to sit through and get really analytical and inside of the technical aspects of it, but I can speak effectively myself to the technical side, the tactical side of it. I know you're going to be able to speak a lot to the business side of it, the operational side of it. And we thought it was relevant to bring this conversation to our listeners about email deliverability because it's going to affect cold outreach and beyond for 2024 and what you're doing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pull up the press release here, and I'm just going to read a couple key points from it. I'm not going to read through the entire thing. You can obviously check it out online for yourself. But so let's take a deep dive a little bit into this blog, call out some high level things on this press release. You can obviously read the whole thing word for word on your own time. If you're interested, you can go to Outreach and check it out. But this was published by Abhijit Mitra, their president of product and technology and outreach. And so just to call out a couple things, recently Google and Yahoo announced changes to their requirements for email acceptance, obviously creating some apprehension in the industry. They're going to share some best practices, of course, but if you're using these email outreach tools and sending a lot of cold emails, this is going to affect the way that you communicate with customers, especially if you think about marketing and what marketing is doing in tandem with outbound sales motions. It's believed to be a net positive change for the industry. It'll empower sellers to pick up the phone, meet with buyers in person, get to the bottom of their business needs, and work together to solve their toughest challenges. So you're going to need to adjust your email processes to be viewed as a legitimate sender by Google and Yahoo. So here are some of the policies and recommendations. So strongly authenticate your emails. So making sure that your identity is verified closely, closing security loopholes exploited by attackers. So that's authenticating emails using SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, which we were calling out. They're technical things. You can do your research online. A lot of organizations are going to have to do this with their IT or engineering department. Offer Gmail and Yahoo recipients the ability to unsubscribe from commercial emails with a single click and process unsubscription requests within 2 days, which is interesting because if you're a fan of email deliverability, not including links in email is one of the big things that people talk about. And then enforcing a clear spam rate threshold. So senders must stay under a spam reporting threshold to prevent users from getting unwanted messages. I believe it's 0.3%.
0.3%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you're over 0.3% of the emails you send being reported as spam, that's going to violate policies. So obviously this is pretty big. I think some other things high level, it's a cap of 5,000 emails per day per organization. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you actually pointed this out to me earlier in the week when we were doing our homework on it. A sender is considered an organization. So
I think that's typically, but now typically in the rules, but now within the new rules, it's 5,000 emails per organization.
So sender equals organization.
No, sender would equal a sender, an individual instance. I believe the new rule is it's limiting to 5. That's why people are panicking is it's saying www.thesales.rx.com. That domain cannot send out more than 5,000 outbound emails.
Right. So in that case, so sender equals organization in that case.
But Chet at thesales.rx, Billy at thesales.rx,
the aggregate of everybody from a domain.
It's not saying I get 5,000, you get 5,000. It's your org gets 5,000, which is why people are panicking.
Right. And that is specifically to Yahoo and Gmail.
Yeah. And most likely Outlook's going to follow suit at some point. I would just imagine.
Probably.
But so let's talk about this a little bit. Let's frame it up. In your opinion, as a sales leader, currently working for an organization that has an outbound function, working, with marketing and working with other parts of the org like CS that are communicating with customers on a regular basis. Give me your general thoughts on this. Like, is your hair on fire, or are you like me and you're kind of sitting back and just saying, I wish I could invest in stock at Lemlist and instantly because I know the solve is going to be actually fairly easy and I'm not as concerned.
Well, I do want to buy stock in those companies if this is the way it's going to be. To quote Brad Pitt in The Big Short, I read it and it scared the crap out of me. You and I were talking about it a few weeks ago when this came out. You and I were talking about it this week because we wanted to wait to digest this before we went full newsroom.
Yeah, I think I was in Germany.
Tinfoil hats on when we
I was in Germany and you were texting
Yeah.
me. It was night for you, it was morning for me. And you're like, this is so funny that it's like night and I'm about to go to bed. And this is what I'm
Yeah.
texting about. You're like, here's two guys talking about work again.
This is
But
what we do. We
it was
get together in the Inglewood studios and we talk about work.
yeah. You texted me and I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh. And I started looking on LinkedIn, get a better idea. But yeah, you were the first one that texted me about it.
Well, it scared me then and it still scares me now. And I think that's why we wanted to dedicate this time and kind of break from our format to talk about it, because I think it is important that we start this dialogue.
Yeah.
Look, when I go over the major bullet points here, 5,000 messages a day to Yahoo or Gmail accounts, which, having looked it up, that's about 50% of all business domains. So we're talking about a very significant number of companies that are going to comply with these guidelines. You know, looking through like authenticating emails, I got to be honest with you. I don't know anything about what DMARC or SPF is, but what I can imagine is if you work at a big company, that is likely already taken care of. I think that's going to be something that a lot of startups are going to have to take mind to and figure out. Not going to lie, one click unsubscribe and a 48-hour process of unsubscriptions, that doesn't really bother me. And I'll give you two reasons. Number one, like if we're sending sales emails and people want to unsubscribe and we make it difficult for them, it doesn't really warm us up to sell any faster to begin with. Number two, if you look in your personal email at every product you've ever bought and you clicked, do not send me marketing information, they do it anyway, and then you unsubscribe and then you do it again and again, net win for my 80,000 unread emails in my personal Gmail account.
Or the fact that, like, I was making a joke on now called X, but Twitter for those who might still need it to be called that. And I said, man, some of these newsletters could really like benefit from some GDPR compliance training, because there are ones where I'm like, I know I didn't sign up for your newsletter, but I know that maybe like we booked a one-on-one because you were in Rev Genius and you asked me to chat with you through something. And then you stood up a newsletter with your company that you're the CRO or the CEO of or whatever, or your own solopreneurship. And now I'm getting your weekly newsletter. And I'm like, I didn't ask for that. It's like, I think I'm not a villain. So I'm not villainous, and I'm not going to like report a spam and like report it to GDPR compliance or anything. I just unsubscribe, you know, but I do then notice it's like 3 weeks later. It's like, why am I getting your product feature update? I unsubscribe from all communication from you. And so I think that especially with big orgs, I won't name any companies obviously, but there are big orgs where I've unsubscribed from communication and I still get stuff later on. So it's like,
because they don't process the unsubscribe ever.
Which is weird to me, because if I have correspondence with somebody and they unsubscribe, it's done automatically through the email center that I'm going through. It automatically says, no, this person has chosen to unenroll from communication via email to you. You can't do anything with it, you know? And when I had that same exact software and I worked at a company as an SDR manager many moons ago, that was the same thing, because in marketing, we'd be like, oh, we're trying to send out this communication email to our contact database, but it looks like these, you know, some odd number of people, we can't because the email software is flagging it.
But the thing that scares me the most about this, and like, you're a lot more optimistic than I am, and we're going to unpack all of this as we get going.
We are on completely different sides of this. That's why I love the topic.
But what bothers me about this is the spam complaint rate threshold is 0.3%. And just to like mathematize that for you, if your organization sends 5,000 emails a day to Yahoo or Gmail accounts, you can't have more than 15 complaints before you're blocked. And the scarier part of it, like, let's say you don't send 5,000 emails. Let's say you only send 4,000 emails. That number becomes 12 now, 3,009, 2006. Like, we're going to talk about like the psychology of the people that may be villains, as you put it in your flannel shirt. But
you're really hating the flannel. You're really hating it. I tried to switch it up for you.
I'm just kidding. You look great. But like,
I also love how I'm over here with my phone doing the math, and you've already clearly done it in preparation for the talk. And I'm like, yeah, 15, that checks out.
no, I did it all in my head.
There you go.
2.5 GPA from the University of Mississippi. But no, I mean, the scary part of it is there is going to be a set of society that's going to be very knowledgeable about this. And you see them all the time on LinkedIn saying what they're going to say about email. And now they're going to have a new podium of power where it's like, all right, cool. Not only can I do harm to an individual, but like, if I click this button, I put an entire company at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there's going to be a contingent of people that might take that seriously. And that is very problematic, not just for my company, but for any company.
I actually think it's going to get worse. I don't think this is going to help anything. Because you know what companies are going to do? They're just going to go buy up tons and tons of domains. First of all, you shouldn't be doing cold outreach from your main domain anyway, because if you do cold outreach from your main domain and you do hit, even now, the threshold of spam, your main domain is completely effed. So you shouldn't be doing cold outreach or sending newsletters from your main domain anyway if you're a big business. Definitely if you're not a big business, if you're any business really. Because if you start getting that that domain's reputation hurt, you could be ultimately blocked entirely, and you don't want to lose your main domain. But the solve is just now companies are just going to go buy up hundreds of email domains, buy a tool like Instantly or Lemlist, and just everything in there. The challenge it's going to present is for doing outreach from that tool and we don't have everything synced correctly. So if somebody does click a link to book a meeting or something and it's not registering in our CRM or our SEP or in our SEP that's then integrated to our CRM, there's a whole nother tool you're going to have to connect. So that provides, another tool we have to buy, another process we have to think about, another thing we have to integrate. But to me, now companies are going to go, once companies start actually doing that, by the way, they're going to see how much higher their email deliverability rates get. Well, and they're going to get addicted to that too, which is why I think this is actually just going to make things worse, because you're basically teaching companies the secret sauce for the last 2 years with email deliverability is buy multiple domains, warm them up with a warm-up tool, and then use a separate tool to do mass email outreach. And now more companies are going to do it. They're going to see the results and they're going to be hooked on it. So I actually don't think this solves anything. I think it makes it worse.
Well, hang on, because I want to unpack that further with you, but I think we got to get to the root of this before we can talk about where we think it's going to go. So I think it's important that we unpack all of this. And I think everybody who's not already thinking about this as deep as two guys talking about work in the Inglewood studios have, maybe I think this is probably a good transition into a special version of Billy's Black Book.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, you and I talked about this earlier in the week. And by the way, in case anybody's curious about how Chet and I spend our weeks, we're generally peppering each other with ideas for the things that we're going to talk about with you, the listener.
I'm sitting on the couch watching my kids going nuts, trying to watch past recorded versions of PTI and Around the Horn. And I'm like, hey, here's a random thing. Billy's like post work, probably cooking dinner, trying to spend time with his wife, like trying to then check the phone so we could like shoot ideas back and forth. It's fairly chaotic, but then luckily we have time to come together before we record, which is always nice. But yeah, we've been going at this one pretty hard in the paint.
This one more than most. And
Billy had to tell me to stop at one point. He's like, I have to catch up. Stop texting me. He's like, I'm trying to journal some of this stuff down. Stop texting me.
There were some expletives, and then I went on to do not disturb mode. But like, this is an important topic, and Chet and I, we come at this from two different angles, right? Like, I come from a bigger business and you're an entrepreneur, and a lot of the way you think about things is through the advisory you offer mostly smaller companies. So like I filled the Black Book with just general notes. And I think like we should talk, you and I, about some of the things that stick out here, because it's important for the viewer to walk away and have a perspective about this. So maybe we ought to drill in a little bit and cover off. So 5,000 emails. Let's think about big companies for a second. This is a risk. And when you think about the way quotas are set up in a very email friendly world, like, I mean, thanks to our friends at Kixie, like there are better ways to get in touch with people, but not everybody is using Kixie right now, unfortunately. And for those companies that don't, email is still a very big thing.
Yeah.
And there's activity quotas with email.
Well, and let's unpack that for a second.
Yeah.
Why is email a big thing? Because I'll tell you, I didn't do much emailing prior to 2019, and I was hitting my number pretty consistently. So let's dig that into how did we even get here where people are basically feeling like this is kryptonite to their Superman of cold email. Why is email such a big thing for people now? I mean, there are entire companies built off email writing assistant task stuff. You know what I mean? Like, why?
How many calls have you gotten this week from a phone number you didn't know?
You know, actually, since I got back to Germany, after I had done the whole call forwarding things on the pay for minutes to Google Voice Line, I actually haven't gotten a lot. But before that, yeah, I'd get a lot, like scam likely, 800 number, somebody I don't know. That's why you get a tool like Kixie that has local presence, so they think you're calling locally. That's one of the things we can talk about eventually too. Is
even
like
a local number, even a 323 number in Los Angeles. Like I called a guy today who does handyman work. He didn't take my call. He texted me right after.
Yeah,
because he heard my voicemail, but he didn't take my call. That's why email's big.
Voicemail transcription, such a game changer.
And no matter the fact, but the whole point of having a high email quota is you got to get your foot in the door. And you know that funnel starts out really wide and it tightens as it goes. So, but you take a company like 50 emails a day, that means that you hit that sender limit with 100. Now, based on the math, Gmail and Yahoo are 48% of business domains in North America. So really, it's like 10,000 emails you send, 5,000 are going to cap at that limit. So really, really big companies that have a lot of BDRs and a lot of AEs and a lot of marketers for that matter, this is a big risk and it's going to require a behavior change. Otherwise, they're going to get left in the lurch and bad things are going to happen.
Or you just buy a domain for each BDR team. That's the thing.
But it comes back and like domains are not cheap, and we can talk about that too. But in reality, you know, I went to some pretty deep, dark places on the internet to get people's opinions on this. And the thing that people keep coming back to, your LinkedIn guru may not like it, but spray and pray works. You can upload a lot of contacts into Outreach or SalesLoft or whatever straight off of Zoom Info, and it doesn't take that much energy to send out 2,000 step one emails that are very introductory and exactly the same for 2,000 people. So it's a behavior change and it's scary. And talking to a lot of BDR leads, a lot of BDRs in general, or even just a lot of people that think about it, all of a sudden there's a lot of question marks around what's going to become of that function. And it's not just like, are we going to reduce activity? It's going to start boding the question of like, we created this perfect position at the top of the funnel that's designed to knock on a lot of doors for people who specialize in something else. Where are we going to take this thing? Is it going to be necessary, or is this obsolete now? Is this how streaming made the DVD irrelevant? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing, like companies in general, growth models in SaaS have been narrowing. I think you sent me the article that showed like over the last like 2 years, quarter by quarter, what's been the growth trajectory of standard average publicly traded.
And it was finally
companies.
Lateral instead of dipping. Last two quarters. Yeah. It's like leveling out a little bit. And I don't know what the makeup of that stat was. Like, was it that person's company?
110 publicly traded SaaS companies.
Yeah. So it was like finally like level, like the last 2 quarters, it was the same. Instead of dipping for a year.
It was level, but it still showed that it was like a flat 18% increase quarter over quarter. And if that's a growth model for narrowing, if we take the ability to knock on a lot of doors out of everybody's hand, what's going to happen to that forecast? And what's the future? Like, salespeople should be thinking about this. Like, if companies aren't going to grow as aggressively because of limitations that get put in place, what's going to happen to my comp structure in the future? These are things that should be top of mind. The other thing, this is what scares me more than probably anything, is that abuse rate. Because 0.3% is not a lot of anything. And as soon as people come together on Reddit who have a vendetta against salespeople, there's going to be published behaviors to say like, hey, you can do way more than just make a salesperson have a bad day. You can make a company have a bad year if you do this. And there will be step instructions and videos and TikToks and all the things. And that should be pretty scary.
That's why I actually think this is more terrifying for marketers than it is salespeople. Because let's back up a second to how we got here.
Yeah.
We love email because we have phone reluctance, and we're okay with that. We think that this participation trophy era, misguided and mislabeled as just being empathetic, means that, oh, you don't have to hit your dials if you send highly personalized emails. And we've accepted average in sales, where it's okay if you have fear of cold calling. We have this whole other thing we can do. There are entire softwares that'll help you write your emails. And so we've moved away from cold calling feeling like the norm, when that's always going to be the norm. When impact AI in sales, first episode we did together, we talked about Air AI, the company that's basically created an AI tool that will call for you. That's awesome. They're still doing it for cold calling, because cold calling is never going to go away. So we're here because of call reluctance. People have it, and sales leaders still need activity. So now we've created this world where it's a lot of emails, personalization at scale. Variable is their name, their company, and their title. Send that canned email. Use it, things of that nature. This is the same thing that happened in 2019 with calling solutions that required companies like Outreach to implement local presence, because people didn't want to keep getting calls from 818 numbers all day long across the country. So now we can call them locally. To me, that's what this is. This is a change in technical requirements and process, but it also is going to take that change in behavior that you called out about salespeople. So now what it's going to allow is we are going to have less email activity requirements, but better quality emails on salespeople. And that's the thing that sales can manage. But when you look at marketing, and I'm not talking down to any marketers here, but there's not a lot of that Q&A that really goes into their emails. It's a 4 or 5 paragraph long thing that nobody's going to read for more than 20 seconds that makes them feel really good about their brand statement and their product positioning for whatever they want to send. And it's just fluff. It's a lot of fluff. I can tell when an email is sent from marketing and it's actually sent from a salesperson. If you just blindly put 2 emails next to each other, I could tell. Now, what it's going to require in that behavior change for salespeople is that's going to be fine and fixable, because guess what sales managers and SDR managers and BDR managers are good at? Should be good at and focused on is they're good at they're good at adjusting behavior for efficiency. But in marketing, it's been the same thing forever. We're releasing a new product. Here's our press release. Nobody wants to read the press release inside the email. You know what I'm saying? So I think I personally feel that marketers are going to be a bit more terrified about this, because marketing is known for typically sending mass canned one-all emails. If this is just a matter of salespeople having to be more targeted with their outreach, lowering the requirements because we understand the threat that we could be facing if we get enough spam reports because people are having a bad day and read a crappy canned sales email, that's something that sales managers, SDR, BDR managers can coach to. But I don't really know who's over there coaching up the correspondence that marketing is sending out on a pretty consistent basis. And this blog, by the way, is coming from a company where I probably get 4 to 5 marketing emails a week from. So, they themselves, I see constant mass email marketing communication. And I think that's going to be one of the really big areas for behavior adjustment that's going to happen is who's now Q&Aing marketing's mass emails to make sure that they're not affecting the rest of us.
So ABM is going to change going forward. Okay. Here's one thing that we haven't talked about yet. And I will be very curious to hear what people who use LinkedIn as their journal to talk about a bad experience are going to talk about, which is say we do curb our behavior on volume that we send and we focus on quality. How many times in your sales life have you felt really good about how thoroughly you researched somebody? Have you felt great about the way you've differentiated and sent bang up copy to somebody, never to be heard from again?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
This puts a lot of faith in email personalization is really what works.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a very big A/B test for revenue organizations going forward, because I don't remember the last time I took a call with a sales rep purely because they researched my LinkedIn profile and found out that I like to drink wine, or that once upon a time, my favorite English football club was Manchester United, which I think is still somewhere in my footnotes on my LinkedIn profile. I think my point is there's a very large contingent of people that think personalization of emails is going to change the paradigm for any seller. And I think there are way more people that will read a very personalized email and be like, that was nice of them to research me, but I don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that overall it's just volume is going to have to be less. Instead of these 15, 16 step sequences over 21 days with 6 to 8 emails, I think you're going to have to go to 3, maybe 4.
Yep.
Intro email, efficiency email, social validation email, soft breakup. Boom.
And I really think that this puts any company, any revenue organization in a corner, because I don't think limiting email correspondence is going to make people pick up the phone more.
But 8 to 12 touches, how are you going to supplement those touches?
You're right. Doesn't mean you should stop trying.
And that's where, then you have to adjust the metrics. We are going to have to increase our call numbers. Like, I get excited for Kixie that this is happening, because now it's just going to go back to a lot of heavy cold calling. Great. Get a solution where you don't have to sit there and listen to dial tones all day long. You can throw a bunch of people in a wide net campaign with a call first strategy, cycle through the numbers of your list until somebody picks up. It's always going to be a numbers game. It's just about what area are we having the most success in? How many LinkedIn automated messages have you gotten in the last 3 months since I don't know who's telling people to send these messages on LinkedIn, but it worked for someone. Like I was on Twitter talking to Will Aitken publicly on Twitter about this, but he said, he posted this thing about there's this sales guru who sends these canned LinkedIn messages. And he sends it, but he blurted out the guy's name. And he's like, how awful is this? Who else has gotten this? And like a bunch of other people that you probably heard of raised their hand. They're like, yeah, this is garbage. Hate this every 3 months, blah, blah, blah. And I just simply said, obviously it works. Well, he wouldn't do it.
Someone's going for it.
Like someone's going for it. And he's like, maybe you're not the demographic, but somebody's going for it. It's like, I think about like Grant Cardone, like he's not for everyone, but the guy's clearly getting someone's money. You know what I'm saying?
Getting
like
a lot of people's money.
Yeah. Somebody's out here giving that guy money and participating what he's doing and buying what he's selling and smelling what he's stepping in. So it's the same thing. It's about like, it's always going to be a volume play. It's just about which area are you going to see the most success. And that's why I just think like email is going to drop far down and we are going to get back to these 100 dial a day numbers because you're going to have to. And it's like, hey, we've been really lenient on it. Because how did we get here? In addition, work from home, COVID, loss of data enrichment to get mobile numbers. But also, let's not forget the world that we live in. I think SaaS to SaaS sellers are going to struggle hard during this time. You know who's not going to struggle? people who are selling to numbers where people pick up at the office, services companies, dental offices, medical offices, family practitioners,
Anywhere where the office line lights up when
because
there's a
people are
chance to
in
make
work.
money.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're not work from home. And so that's one of the reasons we got here, is because we tend to get stuck in this LinkedIn echo chamber where it's SaaS to SaaS sellers. And that's why I think that's why so many people on LinkedIn are getting freaked out about this, because they sell SaaS to SaaS, but you're forgetting about the billion other people that are calling contractors who are immediately picking up their phone because they don't know any better. And because that number is connected with their, 5 to 6 person micro company that they run that can afford your $25 a month CRM solution. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's the other thing about this is like SaaS to SaaS and marketers are going to go through hell once this kicks off in February.
Well, you said a couple of things, and like we've talked about what this means for sellers, and mathematically speaking, in my humble opinion, as a guy who has been in SaaS to SaaS for a while now,
Mhm.
mathematically, it's really hard to make 100 dials a day.
Mm.
It just is, because you're given an account list, could be a couple hundred, could be 1,000 accounts, whatever. You can't burn every lead every day. And when you connect with somebody, if you have a 5-minute call, you could miss 20 numbers in 5 minutes if you're just cold calling and you're just ripping through a list. And I think that's a challenge. I think too, I don't think quotas for emails are necessarily based on a world where we're creating a safe space for people that don't want to cold call. I think it's very reactionary, and people may be more apt to view an email, to reply to an email, than they are to pick up the phone for you.
But would you agree that when you were selling to contractors, service contractors, you probably had higher connect rates on the phone than when you lead teams that are selling to
much
SaaS
higher
sales?
connect rates on the phone?
Yeah.
5x, 10x higher, because their business model relies on the phone to make money, which means even if you're talking to their office manager, you're speaking to somebody that can connect you. And, when we sold in the trades, like we still got people's cell phones, and most of our communication was actually through text because they were out on somebody's roof.
Yeah. Not a good time to pick up the phone and have a call on top of a commercial building in 110-degree heat in Northern California.
Or the opposite. I remember one of the first calls I ever had was like December, and a guy in St. Paul, Minnesota was on a roof, and he's like, yeah, it's -7 degrees out.
Wind chill of
What's it like in LA right now? But I mean, that's totally valid, that there are some industries that are absolutely going to do better than others, but I don't think an email limitation is going to help with companies that are still calling to companies that are hybrid or remote, or even work in an office where they don't have a desk phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that mathematically. Here's the person that I think is going to be put under a very tight microscope by organizations, is the person who's actually writing cadences or sequences on behalf of BDRs. Some companies that's product marketing, some companies that's demand gen, other companies that's sales development or sales managers that actually write the sequences out for everybody. But if this is as bad as we're talking about it right now, and keep in mind we're two guys in Inglewood thinking about what's going to happen 3 months from now, that person is going to be under a tight microscope, because they're going to be thinking about that spam threshold and not basically getting the company canceled. And that is going to become a very stressful job.
And how do you measure if you do get canceled? Because what if it was something marketing did, Like, I think there's going to have to be a massive increase in alignment between those functions as well. And most likely this might, dear marketing, this might be the time when you finally win and sales decides to let you write all copy. This might be when it ends up happening. In some companies it's split, some companies they let that happen. This might be the time. Maybe you put it all in one department. Maybe there's a bridge department that needs to be stood up. Maybe that's a sales enablement function full-time now, is that bridge between marketing and sales in terms of copy. I agree with you. Yeah, that's going to be it's going to be a tough job to have because you're kind of responsible for all of it. And you kind of had to point fingers if it wasn't relying on a contact that reported spam from one of your sales cadences that you created, you know?
And gone are the days of like, I think, or I feel, or I believe, you know, even the least data-driven individuals in a company still know the 1 to 2 data sets they look for things. And a lot of the companies that this is going to affect the most have a pretty robust data infrastructure already. Like, what metrics do you think are going to be critical as part of the evaluation going forward to make sure that we're staying on the right side of this as a business?
Yeah, I think that spam threshold is going to be important.
Huge.
I mean, we've determined that, you know, email open rates don't really matter as much anymore because of the things that are put in software on your phone with Apple and in Gmail, where it's automatically opening emails. So that's not reliant anymore. I would be curious to see the difference in reply rates, but not just reply rates, but meetings booked from an email. I mean, obviously somebody replies and says, you know, kick rocks, eat rocks, whatever. That's not a good reply, but if somebody books a meeting, that's different. So I think those are going to be interesting to look at as we try to get more tactical. Has that actually improved our emails? Has sending less emails improved our emails? People more receptive by email 3 because we're spanning out the cadence in which we send email 1, 2, and 3 versus before when we were trying to fit 1, 2, and 3 in 5 to 6 days because we only have 21 days to get 7 of these emails out. So I think those are a couple things. But being someone who monitors my DMARC statuses, like I look at forward emails all the time, and sometimes those can be indicative of Google automatically forwarding an email as spam because you don't have that authentication with that relationship with their inbox yet, which I think is kind of interesting when you actually look at like a DMARC report. But very, very technical thing to jump in there. But how about you? What do you think of the metrics are going to be?
I agree with you on reply rate. Like, I think that's going to be the thing that we're going to be talking about a lot next year. And you talk about like the LinkedIn echo chamber. Like, I think you're going to hear every thought leader who makes their money talking about their perspective of the goings on in the tech world. I think everybody is going to be saying, have your reply rates improved because of personalization, because of less volume. And I mean, what's a good email reply rate? Like 2%.
Oh, you're asking me?
I'm asking you. This seems to be.
I mean, I can't stand benchmarks like that because it just varies.
It totally does.
When I send, I have a cadence where I reach out to marketers. That reply rate is way higher than when I reach out to sales leaders. Even like it probably wouldn't blow your mind, but I think it might even be double, maybe possibly triple. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but when I worked in logistics software, our connect rate was like 18% on cold calling. That's unheard of, but they're all in office during COVID. You know what I mean? They're in the warehouse because e-com was booming. So of course people were picking up the phone. So benchmarks are hard because you can't, really compare industry across industry. But I think I get around 5 to 8% reply rates any given time. Most of the time. I think my lowest, I think there's one sequence that we're probably, for one motion, we're probably around like 2 to 3.
And I think 2 to 3 is more realistic for larger scale.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things.
But if that's the case, then like,
I'm reaching out to less than 100 contacts a month, probably.
And if personalization is the way, and that's going to be chapter 1 of this new era, then you're going to have to say like, all right, our hypothesis needs to be by personalizing, like we can first maintain that reply rate as we pivot for fewer steps. And then number 2 is going to be, can we increase it? And again, I think the onus of that is going to come down to who's writing sequenced emails or who's giving the playbook on what email steps should look like. The other thing, like down funnel, this has a tectonic impact on sellers too. And for AEs, like if we're going to go down this path of assumption and we're going to say that like well, growth is going to be harder to come by because we're not going to be able to target as many people without spray and pray as we do. Close rate is going to become such an important metric, because if you don't have as many opportunities to pluck from and you're only given 10 where you're used to working 20, you're going to have to close against 10 what you expected against 20, unless some sort of crazy change happens, which I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah. Yeah, but then again, right, you might see an increase in op conversion because you're doing, causation and effect. Right? If I'm doing, like you said, the 15 or the 5,000 emails at 0.3% versus the 4,000 emails, that's going from 15 to 12.
12.
You say? Yeah. So same thing. Like, what if my conversion rates go up? But it makes me think of Breaking Bad, right? When they start, no, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but there's
including me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there's a shift wherein the main character goes from working with a lot of people to working with less people. And he gets mad because when he's working with less people, he's making less overall money. But one of his people say, you don't understand. It may be less money total, but you got a much bigger slice of the pie because we have less people. And so that's like the same thing I think of is, will the conversion rates increase, but we're still at a lower number? And how do we make up for that and supplement that? And then, like, more importantly, like, what's the workaround to all this,
And I think that's important that we talk about too, because I think we've spent how many minutes now talking about what's the worst case scenario for this? Like,
doom and gloom.
You seem to be a lot more optimistic, at least in the way you think about it. So, like, talk about Lemlist and talk about some of these workarounds.
I don't know, man. I think people like to get terrified, and I think people like to create a narrative. So when VPs of sales and CROs go into their board meetings and they're met with scrutiny, they can go, but look at all these things that are going on. You know what I mean? More stuff to throw on the fuel of the macro economy. For me, the workaround is simple. And I think it's actually going to hurt personalization and fewer emails. I don't think this is going to do anything. If I know anything about teams that have a quota, they're not going to go, well, we're not going to lower email counts.
Right.
Or we're not going to spend more time researching. We're going to figure out how we can do the same volume, if not more. And it's very simple because a lot of companies are already doing that. Go buy up a bunch of email domains, throw them through a tool like Instantly and Lemlist, warm them up. What does warm up mean? Warm up means that what they're doing on the back end is they're sending all your domains a bunch of emails out to domains that they own that are automated, and then opening those emails. So it's like, oh yeah, it increases your email reputation. Warm them up for 21 days. And then boom, now you got unlimited email accounts that you can fire emails off from. Yeah, it gets a little more expensive because now Chet has 4 different emails at 4 different domains. There's Chet at salesdocrx.com. There's Chet at thesalesdoctor.com. There's Chet at salesdoc.io. Like, so yeah, it can get hard to manage. It can get expensive. Maybe you silo them. BDR team A has this, BDR team B has that, AE team A has this. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but essentially people are just going to go buy up a bunch of domains. They're going to get a tool like Instantly or Lemlist. They're going to throw it in there. Is that the best way to do it? No. Even though they're the sponsor of the show, I think that you need to get a tool like Kixie and you need to implement more cold calling. And I think you should go for it. And what's the worst thing that can happen? Especially if you're talking about efficiency. Like, I don't know if anybody listening to this understands what Kixie actually does, but it's freaking mind-blowing. If I have 40 calls to make that day, I can throw them all in there and it'll just auto dial all of them and send me the one that picks up. And then I can have a conversation. Like, that's freaking incredible. And guess what? If 30 of those other calls go to voicemail, it has voicemail drop. So it just drops my voicemail in there so they can get that transcription and then call me back. SMS communication, you can dial all of it through local presence. You can connect it into your CRM. There are integrations. Like, this is like next level. This isn't like click to dial one by one. This is like efficiency in a nutshell. And to your point, if you want to develop like a pure outbound strategy where you're like, here's 500 accounts and here's 3 people at each account that I'm targeting, if you're like pure cold outbound, yeah, maybe these people I want to put into an email sequence in addition to that. Maybe these people I just kind of want to follow a call for a strategy. It is going to go more volume. And you can dump a bunch of people in like a wide net campaign. Like I always say, like, do your targeted 30 accounts, your enterprise accounts, and then your like your like wide net campaign where it's a call first strategy, and just try to get people on the phone and have conversations with them. And you can dial those numbers 2 to 3 times a day, because I go through my first cycle of 25 names. Boom, nobody picked up. I go through my next cycle of 25 names. One person picks up, I have a conversation. Go through my next 25. And then guess what? The first 25 I did, I'm doing them again after lunch because I'm giving it another go around. So it's like, I think that should be the solution, is more cold calling, get back to basics, get back to having phone conversations, get out of call reluctance. Unfortunately, I think sales leaders, because we need the number, because we have pressure from our board, are just going to say, how do we keep the same number, if not more? And that's the solution, is to go buy a bunch of email domains. Perfect world would be to do both. Do both.
Sounds like an incredibly expensive line item on the balance sheet.
And I don't know. I think most of my domains are like $21 a year, $21, $22 a year. And then each email is like $6, $6.50 a month. So, for a solopreneur, yeah, but for enterprise sales organization, I mean, it's a line item you're going to have to accrue if that's what you want to keep doing. Or you can look at tools like Kixie and just focus more on cold calling, and develop better email cadences.
Do you know it's another arena that the talking heads are talking about that might be the way to go here is LinkedIn. And, you use the very specific example of service contractors. Most of them are not on LinkedIn, but, I think a big...
We're talking about SaaS to SaaS, though.
But a big tranche of our viewers are SaaS to SaaS sellers. I think people's LinkedIn inboxes are going to start getting stacked up a lot more.
And now LinkedIn has a spam function.
They do have a spam filter now. But I don't think they have a cap on how many messages you can send.
So maybe this episode should have been called "Is Sales Dead?" No. Is cold outreach dead? This might have been the better
Doom
title.
And gloom.
Well, it is. It's like you have this path and then a roadblock gets put up. But I think LinkedIn messaging is dead, but that's why I love sending LinkedIn voicemails, because nobody can resist pressing that little button and seeing what you have to say, and videos, but just recording directly in video. You know what I mean? I think that's the key to go. It's the messages have gotten out of hand though, but I think there's definitely value with LinkedIn if you use the voice memos and the videos. You can hear my voice directly. You can see my face if I send a video. You can read my mannerisms. Much better connection. Creating content, right? We create content here. We put it out on LinkedIn. You said you had like a bunch of people like try to like sell you stuff the other day, but you're on people's radar, right? Because you're creating content. Now people know what you do, where you work, how you can help them. Oh, he's at this company. This is what he does. I definitely agree that LinkedIn, it's just tricky because people tend to go directly towards the message automation, and that's not the look. That's tough.
What about like Vidyard? So hear me out, right? If we're changing a behavior in email completely, if it goes from 8 emails in a sequence down to 3 or 4 to make sure you stay under a cap, do you think that like Vidyard and their competitors are about to have a new golden age?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think people are going to try to leverage more email correspondence because it's something higher touch, right? I will tell you, Catherine Caldwell, she was on the podcast when we were virtual, was talking about mastering video email communication. She did make a really good point that it's like, I will not send videos unless I have a trigger for sending a video. And I have noticed that when I just go heavy with sending emails automatically in a sequence, you will get a lot that never get viewed. Why not wait until there's some sort of trigger?
Yeah.
But now it's tougher because open rates are pretty unreliable, but maybe a clicked link, maybe a forward, how granular do you want to get on that? Maybe not only have I sent them the first intro email, but have they accepted my LinkedIn invitation? Maybe that's a level of engagement. Vidyard has a direct extension into LinkedIn, which is kind of cool. And then you can send that same video to email. Hey, in case this got lost in your LinkedIn inbox, want to send it here for visibility. But I definitely think Vidyard, Loom, SendSpark, Yeah, I think they're gonna be start seeing people looking for what else can we do. I think Lob will start doing really well too. I think direct mail's making a comeback, and I don't think enough people are talking about it because nobody's doing it. Exactly, nobody's doing it. So it's like how much you can get right in front of someone in a completely different light. I mean, right before you got here, I was looking at my mail, and I was like, oh, some of these I already know, like junk, but I look at my mail every day. If you can create something that stands out, I might open it.
10 years ago, I worked in staffing, and like our top selling account manager hand wrote all of her first correspondences and mailed them to prospective customers. And there was a reason she was number one, and she got a lot of calls as a result of her handwritten notes that she would write to people.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But all right, let's bring the plane in for a landing, Chet. Like, call it. What's 2024 going to look like? How does this change anything, if at all?
Well, I want to take it back 1 second, because you just said something really interesting. That takes time though, right? To write those handwritten notes. That's the problem we're really facing here. Is this is going to deter people who are just sending automated emails. And that's the trick. There is nothing more to do with our time because we don't have time, because the mass amount of emailing we're doing is already fairly automated and canned. That's the bigger issue at play. So when we think about, well, maybe send less emails so you can do more time doing this. That's great in theory, but the problem is most likely a lot of these companies, they're already just sending canned automated emails. So I add someone to a sequence. The only thing I'm doing manually is that first email, and then making the calls and doing a LinkedIn touch or sending a video email if there are triggers that happen that dictate I should. Other than that, the other 5-6 emails are probably automated. So there isn't that extra time. But I think, like you just pointed out, another great example of something to do. Handwritten letters. You could do 5 a day. It's 20 a week. I guarantee you're going to get one response. If you can book 4 appointments a month from direct mail, then you book 5 from cold calling, 2 from emailing, 2 from social. Hey, if you're a standard BDR at a normal org with 12 to 15 appointments a month, you just hit your quota, right? So there you go. So I love that you called that out, but I also think that's important to hit on, is that, we even did an episode about professional development. And one of the things is about time. Well, if I have the same amount of time as this person, why is he more successful than I am, so to speak? Same thing. I think the big issue here is that it's not about time. What companies lose here is just volume, but they're not already putting time into the volume. So I think that's a big one. I think 3 big things. 1, time and process optimization for your reps needs to be a bigger focus. 2, and of course I'm biased when I say this, but you need to bring someone from the outside in to help you, because I'm seeing too many orgs doing things internally and not applying voices externally, and it shows in what they're doing because they're really married to their experience and what they know, but they're not leveraging other people. So I know I do that for a living, so I sound a little biased, but I have seen tons of results for customers I've worked with because they overcame that immunity to change of, hey, I know I've done this for 12 years, but maybe I don't know everything, and let's get a different viewpoint. And then, so time and process optimization, bringing in external voices. And number 3, you just, frankly, you just got to pick up the phone. For me, it all just comes back to this. Like, I am rejoicing that this is happening because we're going to get back to the basics of just picking up the phone and making a call. You're not going to have a choice, because guess what? There's a likelihood that we're not going to be able to send that email. And there's a likelihood that nobody's even going to read that email. Now, is somebody going to pick up that call? Maybe not. But you have a better chance of reaching the person faster and getting a yes or a no faster than sending 5 automated emails over 21 days and crossing your fingers for a response. So those are my 3 for 2024. What about you?
I don't know if I have 3. I think I have 2.
Okay.
We talked about The Big Short earlier in this episode, and
dude, every time I watch that movie, I watch it like once every 2 years. I like learn something else because my financial acumen grows. So it's crazy. Like, I always notice one new thing from the movie every time.
Have you read the book?
It. No, I haven't.
All right, I'm going to let you borrow it next week when we come to the Inglewood studios. But mortgage-backed securities and CDOs, the things that literally brought the economy down to the ground. People knew that this was a toxic asset in the spring of 2008, and they were still buying them in the fall of 2008 and into 2009. change is hard. And, you know, I think we've created a doomsday scenario in our mind. I know I sure did when I was preparing, but in reality, I don't know the aptitude for change that's going to come from it. And so we talked about a lot of things, and I hope everybody latched onto one idea that you can take and make your own and create your own perspective as you go here. But I don't know if anything's actually going to change as a result of this.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to make people pick up the phone more. I don't think more people are going to be like, man, people used to personalize emails to me a lot, and now they do too. So now as a result, because I don't get as many spams, I'm going to reply. I don't think that changes because the workload doesn't change for everything else. But here is one area that I'm most interested in going forward. For years, people have been telling me social selling is the future. For fewer years, but still for a few of them, people have said social selling is the present. Now I think we're going to figure out where social selling can go. Mm-hmm. This might be the day of reckoning for social selling, because if all of this is worst case scenario and you need to find a new way to do it, people are going to be buying up social selling courses. They're going to be looking at YouTube content. They're going to be listening to the Sales RX podcast. You can tell them how to do it well. And people might make a very big investment in social selling if traditional methods don't work.
We can tell them how to do it well. Come on. Maybe there we go. What do you think? Should we spin up a social selling course, sell it for $100 online?
Let us know in the comments down below.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'll just give you the information. Either. I just want you to be successful. I want you to be successful. Why would I charge you $100 for a course when I'd rather have you be successful? So successful that your sales manager goes, "How did you do that?" And then you come to us and we land a corporate deal out of it. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. That's why I love Alex Hormozy, because he's like, "Oh, here's this book. Here's how I quantify the value. It's like $3,000 worth of value. I'm going to give it away for free. Because guess what? I want you to be successful so that then my company can buy stock in your company." Like, what a long play. That's brilliant.
Chess.
I love it.
Not checkers.
Yeah, dude. You got to think, you got to forward think. That's what I knew that about Grant Cardone many years ago too. I said, he wants to help sellers be successful because someday he's going to try to sell them real estate deals. And then like 3 years later, he opened up his real estate investing company. And I was like, yep, called it. He wants these sellers to make millions of dollars so they can give him his millions of dollars to buy real estate.
But, you know, I don't think it's worth coming to the Inglewood studios if we're not going to have a good time. And somebody in one of my sales cycles did something that I thought was really funny. So I'm going to extend it to the listeners. If you send Chet Lovegren a great Keanu Reeves meme and ask for some social selling tips, I have on good authority that he will send them to you for free.
Yeah, there you go. I will. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for adjusting with us as we kind of go ad hoc with our format today and talk about something that's really important to both of us. If you're interested in engaging with us or the podcast further, you can check us out. Our LinkedIn profiles in the episode description. Don't forget to check out past episodes or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at www.thesalesdocrx.com. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and enjoy the show, please leave a 5-star review. And if you didn't enjoy the show, you can leave a 1-star review. We appreciate your feedback. Let us know how we can make the show better for you. If you're listening on Spotify, you can do the same thing, but we also ask that you click the follow button. That way, when the podcast publishes weekly, it'll pop up organically in your Spotify feed. Big shout again to this week's sponsor, Kixie, our partner in the power dialer space. If you haven't checked out Kixie yet, go in the comments. You can click to get a free 10-day trial on us here at the Sales RX podcast. Fully loaded trial with hours and hours of call credits. You can see exactly what the tool is, how it works, and get some insight from the Kixie fam over there. We got nothing but love for them. That's all for us. We look forward to seeing you here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific on the Sales RX podcast. And stay prescriptive, y'all. See ya.